Now that we know how to update the state correctly, let me also explore how you can improve the way you're receiving props. And for that, let's have a look at our person component. There, we're using a couple of props. We have the name property, we have the age property, children is a special prop, and then we have changed as well. Now, nothing wrong with the way we're setting this up here, but you can actually improve this to be more clear about which props your component uses, and to also throw an error or a warning if you try to pass in incorrect props. Now, if you're working on your own application and you're working alone, that is not really that important because you obviously know which props your components take. But if you're building a library that you want to distribute to other people, let's say via NPM, or you're working in a bigger team, then you might have scenarios where people start using your component incorrectly because they don't know that age should be a number. Maybe they try to pass in a string. Wouldn't matter too much here, but let's say you're using it in a calculation, then it might matter. Or they try to set a hobby on that user, even though there is no way to work with a hobby prop because you're not needing it. So it can help if you provide some instructions on which props this component accepts and which type of prop each prop should be. So that name should be a string and age maybe should be a number or whatever you need. And you can do this by importing or by installing an extra package. You do this with npm install -- save, and then the name of the package is prop-types. That is provided by the React community or by the official React team actually, and it's not built into React Core, but it is part of React, so to say. It's just an extra installation away because it's optional to use. So let's wait for this to finish, and here it did finish successfully in the end. And now in the places, so in the component, where you want to add some prop types annotations, you simply import prop types, recommended with an uppercase starting character, but not strictly required, from prop-types. With that added, on your component, you can add an extra property, and now this works on both functional and class-based components, after your component definition, so either here after your class definition or on a functional component after setting up the function and storing it in a constant, you access your component, so here person, or if that were a functional component, we would probably have written it with a lowercase p, so here uppercase person, and you add a new property here by adding a dot, and then prop types like this with a lowercase p. That's important here. This should now be a JavaScript object, and prop types is a special property which you add to any JavaScript object or any JavaScript component object, I should say, that React will watch out for in development mode and give you a warning if you then pass in incorrect props. Because in here, in this object, you now define which props this component uses and which type of data each component should be of. So here you simply set up key value pairs where the keys are your prop names, like for example click, and you then add click here, and now you define as a value which type of value should this be. And for that you use the prop types thing here you import up there. So now we use prop types with a capital P, and now this provides us a couple of data types you can use. And after this lecture, you'll find more on the available data types. So here I'll use func, which stands for function, which indicates that for a click, I expect to get a pointer at a function. Not a string, not a number, but a pointer at a function. Now, of course, we're also working with name and age. So let's add name, and name is a string, and there is a string prop type. Now let's say age should be a number. Well, there also is a number prop type, and you'll basically find all the types of data you have in JavaScript. You can even set up more advanced prop types like, hey, this should be a function that gets this and that argument and returns something like this. So you can get really advanced here. Now last but not least, we also have the changed prop here, and this should also be a function. So again, it's prop types func. With that, if you add it, you shouldn't see any difference in your application. Let me open the console here. It should all work. Let me now show you how to break it by going to app.js, and there in the state, which ultimately is the data we pass into the person component, let me switch that age of Max to a string. So it's still 28, but it's now a string, not a number anymore. And remember that in the person component, I did set up that age should be a number. Now in our app, if I toggle persons, I actually get a warning that I do pass the invalid prop age of type string where it expected a number. So this is pretty clear. And as I mentioned, this is especially helpful in scenarios where you distribute your components as a package to other developers or where you're working in a bigger team. Because if someone uses your component incorrectly during development, they will get such a warning and then they can fix their error. So here, of course, I fix it by simply converting this back to a number. These are prop types. Now, should you use prop types on every component then? That is, of course, up to you. I'll not do it here in this course, but of course I wanted to introduce prop types so that you are aware of them. And feel free to use them on any component you have or on your most important components. And definitely consider using them if you are building a component library which you want to share with other developers. So consider using them whenever you have scenarios where other people are using your components and it might not be super clear which props your components take and which type of data goes into which prop.